Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this Break in the Clouds episode with our dear friend, Penny Kelly. You can find her work at pennykelly.com or consciousnessonfire.com, and also here on YouTube at Penny Kelly. Let's give her a big warm welcome. Penny, welcome back to the show.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy October. Happy end of Mercury retrograde. Woohoo.
Woohoo!
Yes.
It's like I'm sweating bullets here, man. This can't be over fast enough. Man, oh, what a crazy day. 3 pay-per-view recordings today. I've had a crazy weekend, and there's lots going on and around the house here too, but I'm excited about this show. I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days. Penny, how are you? I know you've been busy, but you're making progress on your new book. Do you want to just give a quick update to the audience there before we start the rest of the show topics for tonight?
Yeah, I'll say this much. Last July, actually it was a year ago, July, I had a whole series of, how do I say this, visits. I went visiting to places off planet, okay? and had a series of meetings for about 3 months, a little less than 3 months, 12 of them, 13 of them maybe, in which I was being instructed to write this stuff down, write it down. And I didn't recall the first half dozen, but the last half dozen, I started to remember that when I woke up in the morning, it was like, I remember being on board. What was that about? And then we got to the last meeting, which was, I think, the end of August, beginning of September. And that was very clear. And I had this whole portfolio of 12 subjects, governance, religion, medicine, education, money, business, ETs, all kinds of stuff that we had been discussing, and the perspectives that were being given and the information that was being shown was put this in this book. And I was not planning to write a book at all. So that ended around the beginning of September last year. And then I thought, okay, and they said, have it ready by January. And so I failed miserably to have it ready. But then I put it in a talk that I gave in August at the Arlington Institute, and did a whole presentation on these 12 sectors. And it went back recently, and they said I was going to call it the new paradigm or the paradigm shift, and they said no, call it the revival. And that was probably back in September when I went and they said try to have it done by Christmas. And I thought, piece of cake. Well, I'm working on it. So I made
hold on just a sec. Let me bring this up for the audience. First of all, folks, go to pennykelly.com here, and please remember to subscribe to Penny's new newsletter. This is the pop-up on the screen now. And so this new book here, the revival, or this series, is that going to be a PDF download here on the book section as well? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're timing hopefully for Christmas now.
Yeah, and I actually think that there's a possibility now. When I can get some time to really focus on it, it goes quickly because I have all the pieces. But when you're putting a book together, you have to make it all fit together and make it flow, and that's you have to fuss a little bit.
Right.
So, okay. But I think it's time. I'm so tired of hearing about COVID this, blah, 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 the shots. And I'm like, you guys, are you still falling for all that? Forget all that. Get involved in the new earth. Become a new human. It's time.
So, this is your time. Exactly.
Yeah.
Penny, bring down your speaker volume just a little bit. I'm hearing a feedback back from not your mic, but your speaker level is still a bit high.
How's that? A little better?
Maybe a little bit more.
A little more. Okay. I hear that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I'll try to mute myself too if we have more issues.
okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on this live interactive show. Who knows? It's a Sunday night. Things are wacky, and we might get a special guest that are on the show. You never know. I'm not promising anything. So, Penny and I are just going to have some fun here and share some really cool new insights with you. A couple of things. So, Penny, you just mentioned here that you're working on the October look-see right now. You're almost ready to share that with your audience. Perhaps we can give a little bit of a snippet to the audience here. And also you mentioned that you are also forward-looking into November and how maybe those look-sees are different than the ones you did in the past. Why don't you set that up for the audience here a little bit to let them understand why it's a little bit different, and then we can get into some of the data itself.
Okay, so for the October look-see, which I did release, the main focus that I had was trying to explain what it is to look, to see. What are you doing when you're being clairvoyant? How does that work? What are you actually reading? And then I wanted to bring in the whole issue of biases. And so what I actually did was put a couple pages together that had an explanation of, because somebody had said, we want an absolutely 100% ironclad correct prediction. And I'm like, there's no such thing. Because I'm reading people, and the people are the ones who make the world. And that whole question just really hit me to say, wow, people really think that something outside themselves is in control. And that's not the case. It's us, people. We're making this whole thing roll forward the way that it's rolling forward. It's us. And so I took some time to explain that. And then my big focus was mostly on people and what was happening with people, because people are so easy for me to read. So I think the thing that I highlighted was, and I might have said this on our last talk where I talked about us being the normies, all the Trumpers. I'll read it like I wrote it. There's a lot of talk about whistleblowers and secrets coming out. And I've noted this in previous look-sees, and so have many others. The prediction is that the normies will be shocked to the core by a relatively instantaneous red pill effect as the truth comes out, and how our leadership has been behaving in the past, and the awful stories about things happening with children and young people and stuff like that. But what if the talk and the secrets revealed are about Trump being deep state? Trump, the guy who led us merrily down the garden path and right into the arms of the Great Reset, the medical genocide, and the New World Order tyranny. Oy vey. What if the normies are us? What if the normies include all of those people who love Trump, expect him to return and restore the rule of law, remove the masks and the shots, rescue our financial system, expose the corruption, and return us to some kind of peaceful life that we all consider normal? What if we are the ones waking up to discover we have been just as lost in illusions as those we considered to be Biden idiots and sleepwalkers? And the reason that came up again and again was because every time I tried to see Trump coming back, I didn't see it. He's not there, and he's under great stress and great duress from the people above him. And so I thought, whoa, what if we're the normies? Uh-oh. The thing that concerned me about that was the loss of the dream, the loss of the vision, of the hope that we could go back to normal or back to anything that we even recognized. And I don't see that coming. And I don't see Trump in place. And I think that that's a hard thing. For me, that was a very hard thing to contemplate. So it's like,
hold on. Sorry, I had my mic off. Hankowitz says, yeah, she's simply asking questions. A few people just got triggered by some of the things you're saying there. And of course, they probably didn't understand anything after you said Trump this or Trump that, but they forgot when you said what if, and you replied what if here, or said what if 20 times.
What if?
So we're having questions here. So it's a what if scenario.
Don't get excited, you guys. Keep your head on.
Exactly. Somebody else says, okay, relax, people. It's just a what if scenario. And the reason we're asking this, and perhaps that person or those people haven't watched your last show, we're having these what if conversations here because as adults now who are waking up, we have to be intellectually honest that we've been duped 1,000 times before. And it's possible that at some level still here, even the people who think they're woken up are also being duped. That's all this conversation is all about. If you can't have this conversation, it's okay. You don't need to watch my show. You can go watch another show. That's fine. But there are people in here wanting to listen and to have this conversation. So please respect the people who want to have this conversation and to look at the what ifs. And calling people names here is not appropriate either. So I'm going to say just goodbye to you here. There you go. Well, that one's gone. Okay. I mean, guys,
I can tell your father.
Okay.
Go to your room. Don't come out until you can be nice.
All right. Sony says, JC, bingo. Yes, thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Let's continue
there's
our
another
conversation
thing.
with the other adults in the room. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. That's right. So another thing that I saw was that the cabal really had a chance to back down and go away. And they didn't take it. They refused. Mm-hmm. And they, which is mostly the elites and the super rich, had planned to take over the planet. And this is something I have not said before. I've seen this quite a few times and thought, well, that's just stupid, but it kept coming up. So I finally thought, okay, let's put it out there. They wanted to take over the planet. This is the elites and the super rich, and use it as their playground while conducting business with other civilizations from other planets. A big part of that plan was based on bulldozing many of the coastal cities, cleaning up the air and water, which was good, eliminating a lot of the humans who are the ones who survive are being paid with cryptocurrencies. And those cryptos allowed for complete control of the activities and the personal wealth of those humans who survived and are also, I did not put in there, but I should have been hybridized to some extent. So the cabal is realizing they cannot make this plan work at this time. But they're hoping to maintain control of just the financial system via cryptocurrencies, and then to eventually rebuild their power base and complete the plan maybe 200 years down the road. They're thinking long-term. They have learned to think long-term from people who are experts at thinking long-term and who live long, very long, who are from off-planet.
Right.
So there are two danger points in this plan, both of them involving nuclear war. But they really don't want that. They don't want that because it's too messy to try and clean up. And it just makes the cleanup much more expensive, much more difficult. So we are at the first danger point right now. The second danger point will be in approximately 100 to 150 years. So that, I think it does put a different twist on the plan, but I think it's important for people to understand that there's a lot of other civilizations here besides we earthling humans. There's a lot of others here, and the original plan was that they were going to charge others for coming here, people who come from other places in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the whole plan, or was the whole plan. So that's, I think that plan is failing. I think it's up to us to make sure that that doesn't happen. And we have to get I just did a live stream of my own right before this one. I think it's really important that we, how do I say this? I lost my train of thought. There's so many things. At this point in time, we have to make sure that what we want actually comes to pass. We have to come up with strategies. We have to recognize more than anything else that all the pointing is at Joe Biden and the government. And I don't think the government has, they don't have a say in anything. And maybe it's just because I'm older and I've seen a lot of stuff. But in my humble opinion, we haven't had a government for 50 years, an honest, real government. What we have had are corporations pulling strings, and the government has been left in place as a facade. And when the Robes first said that, I was like, well, maybe there's one or two corporations out there. So now I'm looking at it and thinking, not only were they right, they were right way back then in 1980, 81. It's all corporate, all of it. And we need to wake up and recognize who's got the power, who's using the government as a screen, a smoke screen, and who is able to, it's really the corporations, the big corporations that are making all of this happen. And you see little hints of that in the Gates and the Schwabs and the Trumps and the, whoever else is involved in Bezos. That was another thing that came up.
You mean about Bezos?
It was this was in from December to January. I saw the words come up like in a headline, and it was the fight of the dinosaurs. And it was really a headline presenting information about the elites. And I had the impression that very, very, very wealthy men were competing to control the world. But the general population was ignoring all of them and was busy building the world that they wanted. So I think we're coming to a showdown here over the next couple of years. And we'll see. I think it's going to take 2 years at least for some of this to settle. But one of the other things I saw was that the coronavirus story seems to have faded into the dust by the time we get to the end of January or February. It's fading already.
If you're looking at the narrative now, too, some of the airlines are saying, well, it doesn't make sense to force anybody now. There's no cases. Like, they're already changing the narrative on that level.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on just a sec. Corinne, before I lose this on the chat, she's asking, hey, does Penny have a YouTube? Well, yes, she does. Let me bring this up. Penny Kelly here on YouTube.
Yeah.
And let me bring the link down for you guys. Okay, we'll get back to maybe January, February here, because I want to tie that into some of the work that Cliff High is doing also, because his last video, not the one today, but the one 2 days ago, Straw Woo, he was talking about us being in a period of initiation. We're being initiated into this new world. And so he's tracking, or you're both tracking on the same point. And I think your 12-part series here is very important. And perhaps when they said make it ready by January last year, they really meant January that's coming up, because by that time we're in that initiation. 2 feet maybe up to our knees into it. We're just starting it now.
That makes me feel much better.
Okay. I want to backtrack on something you said before we do the November woo, or parts of it here too. You just mentioned that the governments, and you talked about the corporations. So let me bring this one off the screen here for a second. In our last video, the one we did on pay-per-view, where we talked about this ET and human trafficking scenario, you talked about how this model of, I'm trying to remember how you worded it, of harvesting these planets or used in different
Right.
places around the galaxy, around the universe, and how ours was very similar to all of that. And there was a key step in there, and it was the corporation. Can you talk about that here a little bit to explain what that concept meant so people understand where you're coming from here?
So that comment was made in the context of understanding that there are several key things that appear suddenly in a civilization when there is a takeover process unfolding. And the takeover is the attempt, typically by some of the aggressive ETs in the universe, mostly Dracos, and the Dracos have people that they work with, and so they end up sending in the little guys first. We wrecked our planet. We need help. We're trying to restore some of our DNA and stuff like that. And then in come the bigger graves, and they are master geneticists. And so they make some deals with the various governments, and the governments the deals are, we'll give you technology. And, some of this is out there on the internet. You can get this almost anywhere. But the pieces that you don't get are that behind those two, the little grays and the tall grays, there's usually reptilians or Dracos who are very good at managing consciousness. And they come in and they institute several things. One is religion. One is the idea of corporate. And the other is the idea of money. And each one does a different thing. But they all move in the same direction, which is to eventually, because these are long-term plans. Colonizers don't expect to take over a planet in 100 years or even sometimes 1,000 years. So the goal here has been in place, or as the effort was unfolding for the last 4,000 years at least. That corporate, the idea of corporate was, let's get control of all the resources, because that's what corporations do. And then we'll get all the people working for the corporations, and we'll dole out money, and we'll then get them to buy back all the stuff they just made for us. And then and we'll take away their belief in their own power through religion. And then they begin, listen to me, they begin to put this idea that the corporation is a person into place, because corpus means body. And so this is a body. This needs to be respected. This has some rights. We spent a lot of time and effort getting control over you and your resources and your lives. And so they start then, they begin to infiltrate into, well, let's back up a step, okay? So they get control of the government, and then they leave that government in place, and they build these monstrous corporations, and then they're in control. But one of the key things that they have to do is intervene. They have to interfere in some village somewhere. It's usually going to be isolated. The interference is so disturbing to the parents that they hardly are able to take care of their children. The children get neglected, or they're traumatized, or they're whatever. And then the colonizers follow those bloodlines, and they make sure that those bloodlines are given all the opportunities and the boosts and the doors that open and the opportunities to get involved with the corporations. And over time, they're able to distort personalities pretty seriously, enough to create psychopaths, sociopaths, borderline personalities. And then those are the only ones, the most ruthless, who are able to make it to the top of these corporations. And they form the first barrier. There's usually 3 or 4 dozen layers of power between the people and the top of the, the governance pile, or the real power pile. And that really becomes their way of creating the kind of people that they want, and then they hybridize and they do all kinds of things to those people in addition to the PTSD that or the bad parenting that caused them to be distorted in the first place. So then they have a whole selection of people that they follow and target, and there's a lot of talk about bloodlines, and people are like, oh, those are really special. Yeah, they're really special. All right. Those are the bloodlines that the colonizers use and follow because they know genetics like you wouldn't. Oh my gosh, you can't even begin to describe how well they know genetics and the traits that get passed down from family member to family member, generation after generation. So that then those people that are psychopathic and sociopathic, or even just distorted, or even suffering from PTSD and just want some sort of security,
right?
They end up in power everywhere. They're the only ones who make it into power, and they have these little cults that they develop and rituals to test whether you're worthy to become part of their group, and you have to do terrible stuff. And good people don't want any part of that, and so they walk away, not realizing what is really going on. They just know we don't want to be part of that, and so they go off to do something else. But they're frustrated as all get out because they can't do their magic, their own magic, and they substitute, or they drink, or they get caught up in stupid stuff that is meaningless, and the whole thing degenerates. And the plan, whatever the plan is then unfolded almost perfectly. And the idea of corporations, that's a major tool along with money and religion. Mm-hmm. And religion really is just a big corporation, mm-hmm. and so is money. And so
is your birth certificate. It brings humans into corporation states, and perhaps that's also what's happening with some of the injections. There might be some other transformation there. Okay, there's a few people asking, where can we find that episode? Because there's a lot in there we can't really repeat here on YouTube, and we're treading carefully here now. But thank you for that on the corporation side. It gives an idea here for the audience here to do more studies. So that was Penny Kelly, human trafficking, 80s and human trafficking, and that's on the pay-per-view website. Let me bring the link down here for you guys. Second, there's a few people asking also about the last Cliff High episode that we were just discussing now. So that's on BitChute. I won't bring the link down here. You guys can find that easily. But again, YouTube doesn't like us when we share BitChute videos, especially not these. Apparently, I just don't know why, Penny. I
don't know. I haven't seen Straw Woo, but I want to.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, the initiation phase. Okay, so folks, you can find that on BitChute yourselves, but there you have a snapshot. You can rewind and you can see that address right there on the bar. Okay, Jenny's saying, "Hey mods, please remember if you're blocking people, make sure you're blocking them because they're being disrespectful. Yes, not because they disagree. You can disagree all you want, but please be respectful. And also, please try not to blow up the chat, folks. If you have so much opinions that you're posting a comment every 2 seconds, then maybe you should have your own show. Think about that. Don't blow up mine. But be respectful. Of course, we encourage the conversation, and this is why we're having these conversations to push the needle forward in our understanding. And that, the more we have different points of views, the better it is. So thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that, and thank you to all the moderators for doing a fantastic job. You guys are great.
Yeah, I like the disagreement questions or comments. It makes me think.
Yeah.
I don't resent those at all.
Right. And you started with the what ifs. Yeah, it makes you think when you go, what if? What if?
Yeah.
What if? Hold on a second, right? I said this in an interview the other day. I forgot who it was with, but I'm like, what if we're in the insane asylum, right? I have to question myself. I think I'm not, but what if I am? How can I self-diagnose if I'm the crazy one? I don't know.
Wow. I know. Sometimes you just have to stop and check yourself.
Yeah. And data comes in every day. I don't
Oh
look
my.
at the situation like I did a month ago, let alone
Yeah.
a year ago. Oh my God, so much has come in. And I
Right.
hear some of these people and they're still giving me the talking points they had a year ago. I'm like, okay, those are great points, yes, but there's
Well,
new stuff coming in too that you need to bring into your field of view.
yeah.
Not need to, that perhaps I would encourage you to bring into. I don't say need. You do what you want
Yeah.
with your own life.
Well,
But for me,
it is
I
a
try to
need in
bring
some
in all
cases.
the new stuff so that I get a better picture, snapshot today. Because like Penny was saying, it's a moving target. Not only understanding today, but especially looking forward in your look, he sees, of course, it's a
Yeah.
moving target. So yeah, absolutely crazy. Okay, we talked about the government thing. Do you want to give a bit of a snapshot to what you have working now for the look-see for November? Do you want to get
I
into that
do.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple of things. We posted the October and November information, just kept right on coming in. So I started putting it down. It's like this was the first thing that came in November 15th to December 15th. There's just this absolutely utter silence in the U.S. about election audits. It's as if people are aware that there was, what can we say, JC? Can we say the word FRAUD?
Well, hold on a second there. Let me see what we can. Yeah, because this is very touchy for our censorship stuff. And it's funny you say you said October. No, you said November 15th.
November 15th to December 15th. A very
Okay.
curious silence in the U.S. around the election audits, as if people are aware that there was a problem and that the problem is really never going to be addressed or admitted completely, and that the U.S. is over.
Okay. On that note, I think that's as much as you can say here. We'll tread. But in one of Cliff's video here, he's talking about that, and he said that I believe the poll that was taken in September showed that 6 out of 10 Americans already believe that to be the case, what you've just described. And that was a month ago. So now that CNN just got bitch slapped by Joe Rogan on the whole horse pace thing here, you saw Sanjay Gupta. That was the media casualty that Cliff was talking about. And he's saying perhaps now we're at 7 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 by next week. So this whole conversation is starting to be interesting, because what he's saying here in this initiation woo is that as soon as their moral authority has been removed from them, like CNN here or the pretendency, then suddenly people have to realize, well, the authority is with us. And again, this is the conversation we're having here. It's us leading the show. Where do we want to go? The sooner we realize that, the more we can move in our direction, not the one that we've been pre-programmed to move into. Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
6
and he was also seeing, just so you know, in this last video, he's talking about the October date. What was it? October 28th. He's seeing a huge demarcation line there. So somewhere between October 24 and 28, something big happens there. There's a big release of emotional tension there. It's building now. And at that point, we discover something. And I thought, does it have to do with this, Penny? Did this come up in your look-sees? Just today here, this is, where is it? So these bad people, I won't say that word here, in Disney. So these officials, and we just heard a couple of days ago, there was this, I think it was the staff of the Sergeant at Arms of the House Representatives also caught with this type of stuff. And so this is coming out into the field. And we thought perhaps this was one of those things that you and I were talking about last month, about this big unearthing of things that, oh my God, humans would have to deal with. So did that come up in your look-sees here for either October or November?
That has come up in the past. It hasn't come up recently. I've known about that for a very long time, about what was going on in Disney, because I knew somebody who worked with him with Disney, and the parties that they used to host on a regular basis for children, for like, why did you have these parties every week? So it really was disturbing when I saw that. It hasn't come up. I had thought that what was going to pop around the 28th was something around the perhaps, I'm not sure, about Philippe Argilier, and his databases that have the names of the key deep state players and who they are and what they've done and how they operate and how to get around them. And he is saying he's releasing those now. If that is the case, if he's legitimate, which I think he is, then that is a huge, like, OMG. Like the Pandora Papers were sort of like, ho-hum. Is there anybody on this list that we know? No, not really. But I think this database is going to be, there are 4 databases with information, and they are going to be released. And I think that's maybe going to be a shock. But the whole whistleblower thing is just pouring out over the next few months. People get to the point where they're just like, okay, let's turn some music on. I just want to hear music with no words, so that I can just kind of take a breath and relax.
Right.
So
that's a big part. Important. Yeah, stay in nature and take care of your physical body too. And Ken Short from C60 Purple Power is on the screen.
There you go.
Yeah, anybody with an IQ higher than room temperature knows what just happened last night. I know. Check them out here at c60purplepower.com and check out the coconut flavor. That's the one I love. So thank you, Ken. We'll get you back on the show here soon to talk about some of these cool stuff. All right. Well, yeah. What else can I say on that? Yeah.
Well, I have a few more things to share.
Oh, okay, keep going with the November stuff then, and I'll ask.
Yeah, hold your comments for a minute.
Okay.
The European Union begins breaking down at the same time the U.S. begins breaking down. So that was like, and it reinforced to me that this is not a U.S. issue. This is an attempt to get a control of the whole planet. And to do that, you have to destroy Western civilization. So that was another thing. So the third thing, well, let me skip that. That's too awful. Number 4, Australians begin fighting back against mandates and lockdowns, as do Canadians. And it looked like it got pretty rough. So,
yeah, we've seen some riots in Australia, not in Australia, in Alberta today. This is Australia here now too, but in Alberta we had some quite big demonstrations here today too. So it's starting here in Canada.
Oh,
so
wow.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next one was like a little insight into conditions more so than activities. The American bankers who are part of the cabal want to begin bail-ins, but they know that people will erupt if they do. So they try looting other countries, but to no avail. When they try this in a small country that I thought was somewhere in Malaysia or North Korea, that did not have nearly as many resources or fancy technological tools as the cabal, it turned out to be a terrible mistake for the cabal because it set off a chain reaction involving snipers and assassins. The cabal was already, or is already, under attack in other places, and the attempt in Malaysia became a turning point that marked the end of cabal effectiveness. And, I saw that and I just wanted to cry. I was like, oh my God. Okay, it's working. Keep going, people. So, let's see here. By December 15th, more countries are declaring an end to the COVID charade. The attitude was, the shot is working. And they're just letting it all go. So
they're winding down the narrative, you mean?
Pardon?
They're winding down that narrative?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You said December 15, you were seeing that?
December 15 through January 15.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Because we just saw, was it the Delta CEO? He was saying the other day too, they're giving their employees a pass on this mandatory thing.
Yes, Delta Airlines.
Said, well, everybody's fine now and there's no cases, so it doesn't make sense anymore. I'm like, whoa, that's a change in narrative.
Yeah, well, that leads right into the next one. The threat of forced shots begins to ease as more countries, cities, counties, and regions declare that it's all under control now. It's no longer a problem. Many of them pretending that their policies were successful. So I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
That's what the guy said. He said, oh, we had a plan and it's working and clearly there's no cases, so we don't need to force anybody else. So I'm like, it's a beginning of a rollout of this narrative.
Yeah,
it's
you got it.
Wow.
Who was it that said that? The guy on Delta?
I think it's Delta. Yeah, Delta Airlines, because they kind of said, oh, we don't, they wanted to cover the fact that they're going against the mandates, but they said it in a way that, oh, no, we had a plan and it's working, so we don't really see a need to do that. We're not going against the president here, but we just didn't see a need to do that. Let me try to find it. I had it. Here. This is Spirit Airlines, and there was the Western flights. What was the other one? Is it this one here? That's Delta.
Oh,
well, Delta had some issues too, apparently, with people having heart attacks during the flight, and the co-pilot had to do an emergency landing here too. So it was kind of in response to that. But anyways, the news cycle is so fast. I'm having trouble finding all this.
I know. I saw that headline, but I didn't listen to it.
Allison says, yeah, Southwest. I said Western something. Yeah, Southwest Airlines was the first ones
to
apparently have weather issues, and this is why they were canceling 2,100 flights all of a sudden, whereas everybody else was perfectly fine in that way.
Yeah, there was a storm over in Nebraska.
Just for Southwest Airlines staff, nobody else. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
My gosh. Let's see, a couple more things. Let's see here. Hang on. Even though the COVID issue is slowly dissolving, the problem in the U.S. is the fact that the government is falling apart. The elections are still not dealt with. The financial system is a mess. And there's a lot of people that are very sick. So people are distracted by the reality of their, worrying about their money, worrying about their mother or their grandmother being sick or whatever, a lot of people being sick. So, but the big thing, I think in this period of time that I saw Pfizer was under investigation for medical fraud. And I thought, typically when that kind of thing happens, and they've been working hand in glove with the cabal, they arrest the people at Pfizer so that they cannot talk. So, it's like, no, I can't talk about that. Or they whisk them away and put them in jail and say, no, nobody can have access to them. So I was like, well, Kalamazoo is a Pfizer town, big time. That's our major employer, one of our major employers. And I was looking at that thinking, watch out, Kalamazoo. So let's see. This was another thing that was interesting. We're still in the December 15 to January 15 timeframe. The big struggle among those vying for control of the U.S. continues. So I'm no longer seeing any signs that it's anything about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about factions trying to get control of various countries. And so Trump and Pelosi team up secretly, but the general population is not in the mood for old-time politicians. And it just looked like everything that they tried to do just fell flat. People were moving 90 miles an hour into something that they had no idea where they were going, but they were going. It's like, we're done with that. We're done with that. We're not interested in the old structures at all. And that was aided by the younger generation in their late teens and early 20s, beginning to come out of the house kind of thing and into view as a voice for change. They have been irrevocably changed by the experiences of the past 2 years. and they are tired of the whole situation, unwilling to be quiet or go back to their room, and very, very savvy about what's going on. So I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then, of course, there were shortages of a lot of things at that point in time, and that went into February. But when I got into February and March, there were a lot of restaurants that were opening up in places where they had closed and thought they were closed forever. So the other thing was, the last thing is, China was beginning to look more and more shaky economically as the fallout, a lot of fallout from the Evergrande debacle spreads and deepens. Their winter is rough, their food is in short supply and very expensive, and their people have had enough. The normal number of protests in China goes up from around 70,000 per year to well over 120,000. And the numbers of people involved, their persistence, and their willingness to become more aggressive increased greatly. So those were the extra things that just kept coming in after we published the Overlook-C.
Let me bring this one in on China. In this Flux Wu video Cliff was talking about here, he talked about the fact that in the mid-century here, scientists had discovered there was an issue with the sun, and that not only were we not going towards global warming, we were going to the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Again, I'll watch my words here. But that created a problem, especially here for the CCP, who need to feed all of these people to prevent all of these riots, as you just talked about here too. So that the CCP did partially play the game here with some of the globalists to perhaps capture politicians, capture lands across the planet so that they could feed themselves here. And of course, they couldn't just come up and nuke everybody. That would mean that they couldn't use the soil to create the food. So they would was it Clinton or who else said this, that they wanted to get rid of all the useless eaters. Well, apparently that's what's happening right now, if you think about it, in a self-selective type of way. Let me ask you this question. Does this come up in your data? Cliff posted this on 13. This was in response to another video here, but he's saying that the powers that be, I won't read the first part, but the second part here is saying that's only going to happen or work until November, December, because in November, December, we get the great part of the great die-off that begins. What do you have in your data on that?
I did see that.
Is that the number you didn't want to talk about?
That was one of them. Yeah. Daphne said to me, don't end on a bad note. But in January, February, the U.S. was racked by confusion and chaos. Multiple groups are claiming that they're restoring order. Nobody believes anything or anybody. There are at least 2 governments and possibly 3 groups, governmental type groups that are vying for control. And there are many more deaths than usual. And you put all that together and it's like, oh man, what a mess.
It looks like we're seeing the deaths now. I'm getting a lot of people.
We're seeing some.
There's more ambulances than ever. Some of the mortuaries are saying, hey, what's going on here? So, of course, this lines up also with the worst time of the year where vitamin D goes down. So perhaps these people who are damaged are going to be more affected by this now.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's not just Cliff. It's not just you. Armstrong Economics also in his modeling, he's seeing huge die-offs coming up here at the beginning of 2022. All lines up again with this data. Yeah. So the people who are here, who are doing the work, I mean, we have to get ready. And again, this is why we're having these conversations. It's not doom and gloom. Man, well, part of it is, I agree. Some of it is nasty, but pretending it ain't so doesn't help you navigate what's coming. It doesn't help you prepare for yourself and for your family.
Yeah, we have to prepare up here. It's you can get all the food together. You can get all the energy or extra, get a fireplace and wood or generators or whatever. But if you're not ready psychologically, it's really hard to cope with all of that. One of the good things I saw was that there was a lot of old-fashioned nursing going on. People were not wanting to go to the hospital. They absolutely were like, nope. They knew the hospitals were problematic. And so they were like, nope, I'm going to take my chances at home. So, and so there was just all kinds of, like soaks, foot soaks and bathing or baths. There was all kinds of homeopathic remedies, herbs. People were researching health left and right, taking supplements. You couldn't hardly get supplements. And all Vicks Vapor Rub. I was like, okay.
What's funny about that too, and thank you, Curioso. He says, "Yeah, invaluable conversation, JC. I appreciate that. We're just having a conversation." And what Penny is saying too, if you're going to prepare, it helps to have these conversations before you hit those scenarios. So the what if that Penny started here is very important. Say that in your life. And, okay, so going back to this medical thing here, check this out, and this ties into what you're saying. In Quebec here, they had this drop dead date, Freudian slip here, of October 15th for this forced vaccination of all the healthcare workers. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, there's a few hundred disgruntled, disrespectful, angry anti-vaxxers, blah, 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 who weren't going to take it. And when the day came, they were like, oh, no, it's not a few hundred. It's 22,000 healthcare workers that said, F you to the government. So as soon as that happened, the government's like, oh, okay, wait. We'll push back the date to November 15. I'm like, dude, you don't understand what just happened. You made a bluff. Yeah. The healthcare workers called your bluff.
That's right.
And giving them another month is not going to change jack shit.
No.
They've already called your bluff. And so I don't have it on the screen here, but yesterday or the day before in the news, 33,000 of the vaccinated healthcare workers in Quebec said, F you, we're not doing the overtime to cover for the fact that you fired these perfectly good people here.
Oh, my God.
We're seeing that. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this premier here in Quebec, I don't know how much long he can stand on this craziness. He's creating a huge problem here. And of course, I think what he's trying to do is delay the fact that they've lost the battle. This is why they're pushing the date as opposed to saying, okay, shoot, we have to go back. But this is big news, and it's happening everywhere around the world if you really look at it. You won't find it on mainstream news, but it is nevertheless happening.
Wait, let me correct you. There is no such thing as mainstream news. It is corporate news. Mm-hmm. It's put out there by corporations. Mm-hmm. And I think we should move away from mainstream. They aren't mainstream anymore at all. That actually was one of the things I saw was this number. I saw this number, 823,000. And it was in connection with CNN. And I thought, what is that? So I went.
That's their total viewership for a week.
What's that?
That's their total viewership for a whole week.
I didn't see that. I didn't find that, but I saw that number. And when I went digging, it was like, oh, they have less than 1 million people for a whole week. That's like, oh, bye-bye.
Well, that's the thing. Joe Rogan had like 4 million views on this episode where he's slapping Gupta here on this horse paste thing. So yeah, this is the media casualty Cliff was talking about. It's here now. And so again here, who's going to trust them to say anything, to say the truth anymore? Yeah. And so already, like I posted something here 2 weeks ago. I had 2 million views in a week or 2 weeks of viewers on my channel. I'm like,
very good.
Look at me. I'm doing better than CNN. Who the hell's watching CNN then? So clearly, like you said,
823,000 over 7 days. So what is that? 100,000 per day?
Yeah. Incredible.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Wow.
October, November. Okay, let's get into this. We haven't talked about what really happens to the financial system. I just did my monthly report with Jim Willie earlier today as a pay-per-view. Just recorded it. It's going to be live for the Insider Access Pass members later tonight, and then to the public tomorrow or Tuesday. Wow. But he was looking at this too, and he says, JC, man, I've been at this, like the newsletter for a long time, and I have insiders everywhere. And the more I look at this QFS thing, the more I don't understand it. It doesn't seem to work. And so he's a little bit frustrated with that too. And me too. I have to admit, I'm looking at all of these pieces here and I'm saying, where does it fit? It really feels like there's competing factions fighting over each other. And in the meantime, nothing's happening. We're seeing the breakdowns of the banking system. We're seeing in Lebanon people throwing rocks at the bank because they can't access their funds anymore. And we're going to see more of that, mind you, for the audience here. And again,
we sure are.
Absolutely. But what's your data saying here in the next couple of months? Are we seeing a manufactured reset by the bad guys? Or are we going to see the breakdown first of what's there so that we can introduce something new? Like, what's the timing of all of this? We're seeing the breakdowns now in the supply chain. A lot of this is indicative here that the system is actually in the process of resetting itself. But this whole idea of this new financial system to take over the old one, how does that? Okay, tell me what you got. I'm trying to figure this out, and a lot of people in the audience here are like, "What the f? It's so complicated. What's going on?"
Well, what's going on is a whole bunch of fighting. And so there are several systems out there. So this is my understanding of them at this point. There's the regular banking system with the regular computers. We're all familiar with that. And then there's this supposed quantum financial system that is supposed to be being hooked up at any moment. Well, that's nowhere. It's just a fancier computer than what we're used to. Okay. And then there is the Kim. I got this from Kim Gogwin, which should we have a little info from the other side of things? So there was a system that was put together by Trump and Bill Gates, and they were about to hook up that system, hook all of the financials into that system, and then and also add in the social credit scores. And that system was going to be known as the Azure system, AZURE. And so that system was taken out, and they're trying to rebuild it. Gates told Trump it would probably take about 10 months to rebuild it. In the meantime, there's another system that puts all the rest of them to shame. It's a system that I'm much more familiar with, and it's called a mapping system. And a mapping system is so far beyond the computing systems that we have now that you can't even begin to understand. Well, you can understand it, but it's something that people are not familiar with. So,
okay, hold on just there for a second. I just did this special deep dive investigation with Janine on the QFS. And every card we were pulling, we were like, wait a second here. Everything we're looking at is pointing at ET, like extraterrestrial version of what we think they're trying to put it on Earth here.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Right. Okay. Speak about that a little bit here again. For the audience who are just paying attention to this, or maybe just waking up to all of this, we are not in an enclosed system. Okay. That's the first thing. As soon as you realize that we're being siphoned off resources, people are moving off the planet, so too is the previous financial system, part and parcel, a mechanism for that transfer to happen. So now what I'm thinking, or what I'm getting, is that there's another version with help from the outside coming in together to create this new organic version of it for humans, as opposed to the old system. What do you see?
So let's just kind of nutshell what is at the present moment. So we have all of the how do I say this? All of the banking system is just staying alive by doing the repo window magic trick every night.
Right.
Putting out more and more money. However, the Fed no longer has the right to produce new money. They can't get new money. So Trump has been putting out some money that is basically counterfeit, and that's not good. That is just not good. But the problem is, if you want to talk about ET, first thing you have to say is that guys, the whole story that, oh, maybe we're discovering ETs, or they're allowing us to see something flying by, 5 million kilometers per hour in the sky. It looks like ET. I mean, that is a joke. They have been working with ETs for at least 75 years that I know of. And that, oh, what was that?
Oh, that was William Shatner going to space. I'll get to that.
No, the one before that. I didn't see that.
Yeah, that was this week. But this is the video that's interesting about these cylindrical shapes now, too, making the news. There's a lot on the ET front here, but we'll get to that in a second.
A lot of those long cigar-shaped things are U.S. or Earth kinds of interplanetary things.
And moon, yeah, moon base. We'll get to that in a second here, but keep going on. I don't want to say QFS at this point. There's something here underlying or underpinning an organic human system or economy with the help of, and I'm not sure if it's the mapping technology you're talking about or a holographic technology we're talking about to bring us into this new.
Okay. So let me just
see, folks, there's a reason why this is convoluted, and it's even convoluted for me. And I just had a conversation with Jim too. So you've explained there's a lot of characters in here, and I just saw another video last week. I just want to ping you on this, Penny, and perhaps you and I can do a show in a week or two from now on this specific subject once you've seen the video. But there's another gentleman talking about QFS right now and saying that there's 3 versions competing right now. There were 2 he was talking about, and then he said the third one was Kim Gogan. So I'm like, oh, I've never heard that part before. So I was trying to figure out what those 3 components were. Now, nevertheless, of those 3 components, there's this higher one here that I'm talking about, which is what we were decoding with Janine, with the organic, more extraterrestrial kind of version of it. So do your best. So from what you know, share what you know and what you've seen, because we're all trying to get all these pieces together to get the bigger picture here.
Okay, so Kim we had a dual financial system. There was what was called a front side system and a back side system. Okay, the front side is the stuff that we all know and do. The back side was a mapping system, and it was run by the Dracos. It was built by the Dracos. It is connected to other planetary groups and civilizations. Period. I just have to say, there's a lot we could talk about in terms of ET, but let's stick with the financial thing for now. So Kim gets control of this backside system, which issued all of the allocation numbers, key codes, data codes, blah, 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 all the codes that the front side system needed in order to get new money issued from the backside system. There's one of her.
That's one of the videos. That's one of the slides that explains this. Yes, keep going.
Yeah,
I'll try to find it for the audience there.
So Kim said, look, you're doing all this stuff with all this money, and it's not helping the planet one damn bit. We're not loaning any more money for bad stuff. We're going to have a good world. We're making changes. And when she had the chance, she changed all of the codes and all of the passwords and the user IDs and ended up with control over the financial system on the backside. The result was her announcement went out to the bank, and she said, look, if you want to play, I'll put money in your account, but you have to sign a contract. Instead of paying 25% to the bad boys, you can pay 10% to me and to our organization to run this so that it all stays positive, so that it all goes to good projects. You will only get loans if your project is based on restoration, innovation, invention, good stuff. So the banks all said, boom, they're just not, they won't deal with her. And the bad boys have been trying to take her out so that they can get control of that backside system. They don't know what they're dealing with, however, because that backside system is really developed by ETs, and it is a mapping system. It is not a computer system. The way we know computers and mapping systems are totally different. They assess the intent embedded in the frequencies coming out of the people that are applying for loans. And if you have any bad stuff in you, poof, you don't get any money. So that's it. We could have a whole show just on mapping systems that I know about from where I'm from. And so it's really, really interesting. However, where we're at now is a standoff. And so Trump and the Gates people and all the Microsoft people have been trying to put a new system in place, because Kim is the one who took out the Azure system and destroyed that the day before they were going to go online and have control of all of us and everything, and all the money and all the medical records and all of the social credit scores and all of the insurance and all of the technology and everything. So the systems, the small quantum systems that people are working on here and there, can't even hold a candle to a mapping system. A mapping system is a totally different animal, and a quantum financial system, even though there's a lot of talk about it. When you go look, I had a conversation with Cliffy at one point when I was talking about, the kind of systems that I know about, and calling it, quantum system. And he's like,
or the AI. Yeah, he had issue with your definition of AI as opposed to expert learning systems.
They don't have, they're still trying to figure out how to program the damn thing. And I was like, but I'm not talking about that kind of a system. So I think it's really important to understand that there is a fight going on right now, has been going on for a year and a half, and they're trying to, they knew, Kim and her team knew that it was going to get a little hairy after September 30th, 2021, because that was the end of the fiscal year for the US, and nobody has been paid real money in a very long time. And they're just trying to kick the can down the road, so that in the hope that maybe they'll get control somehow again, and be able to carry out their plan. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that they don't have a snowball's chance in hell of being able to work that system, because those kinds of systems, mapping systems, don't just say, no, bad boy. They erase you.
Okay, and where do you plot the other two? And I know you haven't seen this other video that I just saw here, but are you aware of two other competing ones to the one you've just described now?
Yeah.
Okay, so who's in charge of those? And let me just bring up a comment here. Mark Rank, JC, Kim is a deep state. Stop leading your audience astray. Dude, I'm having a conversation here and I'm trying to map out all of these things. So whether you think they're deep state or not, that's like me talking about Bill Gates and his ugly plans.
Kim is not deep state.
Okay, so whether they are or not, I'm trying to look at everybody's plan so they can understand what the hell's happening.
That's
so I'm
true.
not misleading anybody. I'm not giving her credence for anything else. And I've said on my show before too, I've had some issues in the past with some discrepancies in these storyboards, but this is the point of having these conversations. We're trying to build a bigger picture. If you don't like it, Mark, you can just go. It's okay. Okay, keep going. Penny, what are these other two systems? How do they tie into this?
They don't. They don't have, there's no comparison.
Okay.
That's the problem. The computers that run the front side system are very sophisticated. The Azure system that Kim took out was way more sophisticated, but it wasn't a mapping system. And once she took it out, they started building another one. Gates told Trump it would take 10 months to rebuild it. I think he's whistling in Dixie, period, and end of story. So
and the Azure system, Okay. Where can I find that or validate that, if anything possible? Kim says she took that one down.
Yeah.
What's the evidence of that? Like, how can I tie that into real world news stories that they won't necessarily say that, but can I point to things that I'm like, oh, okay, that
I'll
could be
see if
what's
I
going
can
on there?
find something. I don't know. I do know that there's been a lot of stuff that has been taken out. Kim just said recently, I find this stuff. She's being guided by people from off planet who have consciousness like you and I dream of. So I think she said, I think they're feeding me the information in a just-in-time format so that the opposition, which let's use the Azure system as the opposition just for this example, it gets taken out at the last minute and it's too late to try to fix it. They have no time to fix it. So all of that, you know, there's all kinds of argument, people saying they're, you know, that Kim is deep state and that I'm deep state. That's bullshit. You know, pardon my French. That is just absolute and utter garbage. And so the thing that has to happen here is as things slowly come to the fore, we'll begin to see. In the meantime, there is a lot of uncertainty. What I've seen as we move forward is that as we get into like December, January, February, a couple of banks say, I'll work with you. And they do that just because they have no other option to survive. And that those few banks, it looked like there were only two, those two banks end up then, let's back up to crypto stuff.
You just froze there, Penny. Okay,
Yeah.
go back. So you said banks and then
Okay. So
crypto.
let's go back to cryptocurrencies for a moment. Yeah. Maybe it'll make JC show up. So
can you hear me now, Penny?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. So cryptocurrencies are something that everybody is really looking at getting into. There's like a mad rush into cryptos as the financial chaos amps up over the next couple months. And so cryptos go up quite a bit. And then it looked like a couple of banks opened up and said, okay, Kim Goguen, we'll work with you. And so they then announced that they're open for business. And she announces it as well. And so people end up flocking to those banks. I could not see which ones they were. It looked like one was a small bank and one was a big bank. And the goal was to, for people was, oh my God, thank God there's an honorable bank that we can trust to put our money in, because it looked like some money had been lost. Not all of it. That was, you know, my attitude was maybe the whole thing should go down so we can start fresh, but it didn't look like it happened that way. It looked like this went down and that went down and this and then that maybe struggled or closed a little bit and then opened and then closed and then opened.
Right.
So it was messy.
Thank you to the person on the screen there. That's a lovely comment. I do appreciate that. We work hard at trying to have open conversations here.
Yeah, thank you.
What you're talking about, Penny, there too, again, we were looking at this and what the term that came out was holdouts. We were seeing banks holding out, maybe hoping that they would stay in the old system and keep control and then eventually just capitulate into this new system. So this was being picked up also in the field in this episode. Let me bring that link for the audience who haven't seen that. Before. So we had this idea of weird holdouts. And in the meantime, we also saw some of these banks doing bail-ins, that they would actually say, no, we're not doing anything. We're taking the depositors' money. So we're going to see weird shit. And it's not going to be the same across the board. We're going to see this weird transition or period here. Now, okay, let me backtrack.
Okay.
Penny, I love you to death. I know you're working really hard on behalf of humanity. I've read a lot of your books. I've had you on my show. I don't think for a second that you're a deep state. It just doesn't occur to me at all. And folks, if you go look at the body of work from Penny on her website and all her teen consciousness, the way she speaks and the way she, like, guys, that's irresponsible to say that. Now, does Penny get it wrong sometimes when she gets look-sees? Do I get it wrong sometimes? Of course we do. We're humans. That doesn't make them deep state.
Absolutely.
Okay. That being said, when I look at this QFS, or whatever you want to call it, because I don't know what to call it anymore. Honestly, I'm getting tired with this. But I'm looking at it, and Penny, let me just backtrack and share what I think. And I think a lot of my audience will say the same thing. Dude, it's so confusing. It's so convoluted.
Yep.
And you started the show with the what if, and somebody was saying, hey, I like this what if. What if all of that is just that, meant to effing confuse us, while the real thing is going to happen here for humanity. So when I look at all this QFS talk, whether it's Kim so-and-so, the other two, I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm this close to saying, you know what, I don't want to hear about this anymore. I'm just going to make it my own. How do humans get together? Because this is all very, very confusing, complex. And I hate that we have to rely on these characters. Kim is one character, you're a character, I'm a character. This is not a character-based story. This is a humanity thing altogether. So when people are focusing on the people behind some of their narratives, they're missing the big point. I'm trying to get at the big picture here. And right now, I'm frustrated with this whole conversation. Not our conversation, of course, but this whole idea.
The big conversation.
That people bridged into the Nasera, Kyocera, the reevaluation, the dinar, it's all in this big effing cloud, and nobody knows what it means. But in the meantime, I'm seeing the shortages. I'm seeing the school who can't feed the kids because they have, the food doesn't come in from the suppliers. I'm seeing the hyperinflation. I'm seeing all of this. And I'm like, okay, hold on, guys. Again, so, okay, let me backtrack and ask you a question here. When you look at all this, let's step back and say, what if possibly the 2 or 3, or we know of 3 versions now. We just talked about 3. What if there's more that we still don't know about? What if this first thing is all a trial balloon to get us to think about the one we actually want, and it's engineered that way, and perhaps the participant don't even know it's engineered that way too? And again, I'm not putting blame on anybody, but what if there's bigger things happening here that we don't know about?
I think that that's really true. When I go to the bank and put in my few dollars, that's one level of business and banking. But there's an alternate system that is operational that you don't really understand or get until you really study how does the system work. Because if I was a billionaire or, had millions and millions, it would be a different banking system. It would be a different story, different rules. That may be still under the umbrella of let's make up a bank, Bank of America or Chase or whatever. It would be under that umbrella, but it's a whole different kind of game where you don't go to the bank. You have a personal banker, and that personal banker arranges money for you, makes deals for you. All of that. You have a special checking account. You have a special relationship.
Can I just interrupt you there in a minute and add something to that? Because I think you're onto something here, and I don't want to lose the point. I understand right now that there is, in fact, or there was, in fact, up until whatever transition we're in now, 2 systems. The debt-based slavery system for you and me and all of our audience, and then the asset-based system where they actually have gold, silver, and all these things into the system for the elites, right? We are relegated to using this fake paper IOU bullshit. Okay, now, maybe that's, and the whole QFS thing is a distraction to that, of us having access to the asset-based system in the back. Where do we go back to that to sound money? Organic economy for the human population. That's the conversation I want to have. And so far, every time I dive into this QFS revaluation and all of that, it just looks like I don't know. Again, I'm not the financial expert. Jim Willie was on my show too, and he's been at this for a long time too. And he's also frustrated looking at this. He says, I don't understand this anymore. It's just getting wackier and wackier.
I don't see a quantum financial system. I think it's one of those myths that's out there. There is such a thing as a quantum computer that they are working on, that they are trying to develop. It doesn't do squat yet. And there have been some reports that I think were seeded years ago about we have this quantum computer and we did this experiment and it worked. And so we now have quantum computing. You know, I think that was part decoy.
And I think also there's confusion because there's a difference between a quantum computer, how a quantum computer works, and perhaps the idea of a quantum financial system. Because the word quantum, the word quantum itself can also means all-encompassing, totaling. So it could be the all-encompassing, totaling financial systems of humanity into one, which would bring the term quantum financial system, which has nothing to do with quantum computers. So again, on that note, I don't know.
Yep. It's a fancy name.
Oh, I know because I saw this. I'm like, okay, where?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is a fancy name for something that's supposed to be impressive and make us think that we're much more advanced than we are. We are almost nowhere. And it breaks my heart when I look at what the possibilities are and what I know is possible and then where we're at. It's like, oh, wow. And so with quantum, just in terms of physics, quantum is a joke. It's like a branch where you go to fall off the plank. You walk the plank, the quantum plank, and you drop into the ocean because you can't go anywhere with it. It's meaningless in many ways. Yes, it's useful to know that there are quantum packets and information is sent in packets, but then what? You know, what about frequency? What about ether? What about, you know, all of the activity going on in the system, in the bigger system? Quantum is like, okay, like second year algebra in terms of when you're talking about, you know, in terms of physics, the equivalent would be second year algebra in math. And so it's really got a long way to go. You know, the system that I think has been in use or was in use by let's say the Vatican and that whole group. That's another system. Most of that has been taken out, but all that gold, all that silver, all of those, you know, technological and archaeological treasures are still in existence. Where are they all? Who's got them all? And I think it's really important for people to understand that we're running around on the surface, literally. And that's symbolic of we have not gotten deep enough into consciousness, into truth, into ourselves, into who's running this show. We're running around on the surface and we have not realized that all the real action is happening inside the planet, out of sight. And there's a lot more stuff happening down there than there is up here. So, and the goal has been to keep us on the surface, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. Let me bring up maybe some woo into this conversation here, because I just talked about the etymology of the word quantum. And now, of course, if you look at the definition, let's forgo the physics part, which is number one. But number two, a required or allowed amount, especially an amount of money legally payable in damages. The court must determine the quantum of compensation due. So now, when you talk about the quantum financial system, with that in mind, I'm like, oh, you mean the damages due to real humans who have been siphoned off of their energy, their hard work, their labor, and all this to other planets, probably, most likely. Now suddenly the QFS makes sense to me. Okay, it's an amount due that's coming back. And here, we're seeing the guys like Cliff High and other people talking about this, that all the money is this inverted pyramid where the elite have all the mass of the pyramid and we have nothing. This is about to be reversed. And this is why he's also excited. Why, yes, there's doom and gloom here for a few periods. But we're excited about the future here, because when we have access to that money or those damages or that compensation due, imagine what we can build for ourselves. That's an exciting conversation for me when we get into quantum financial system. It brings a whole new meaning to it, as opposed to, just quantum computer or something crazy in space happening at the high-tech AI level that nobody understands. I understand the compensation part, and most humans will when they figure out what the hell happened to all their money in their pension funds. That's for sure.
I have to bring up this comment that was made by Philippe Argelier in his conversation with Maria Zach and Stu Peters. He said, if you put $1 billion in a suitcase and you went around Africa, you could feed everybody in the entire continent and come back with half of that money still in the suitcase. He said, so tell me, Bill Gates, where the heck are you spending billions and billions? Are you really doing any good? And I was like, oh my. I think we don't understand how carefully we have been stripped of money, of resources, of power, of rights, of everything. And we're running around like chickens without a head, trying to figure out, how do we move ahead? How do we get what we need? We're working, our fingers off, and we're getting almost nowhere. And so it becomes incumbent upon us to figure out, okay, what do we want, and how do we move ahead? Who do we need to talk to? Who do we need to learn from? How do we need to think about our world? How do we go about, if governance, the governance we thought we had, which hasn't been there for 50 years, has been gone for all that time, what kind of governance do we want? What kind of financial system and rules do we want? Why are we still jumping as soon as the cabal says, jump?
Yeah.
What is the problem there? So, it's really a matter, I think, at this point in time, of coming to a place where we have to stop and look around and say, well, were we living in an illusion? Is any of this real?
And that's, I think, the hard part.
Yeah, it is.
For some of the people triggered in the chat, I get it. But even for me, like, sometimes I realize, wait a second. Every time I look back and I think, hey, this is a solid plank I'm working on, somebody yanked it off because it wasn't. I was taught that it was from schooling, politics, religion, all of this stuff.
Yep.
And now every day we're finding out that the things we thought were real are not real. So I understand why people are frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I know a lot of us are. But at the same time, I'm excited because the fact that all of this is crumbling is the opportunity that perhaps we haven't had in maybe 6,000 years as humans.
That's what I see.
Exactly. To make our plank, to move forward with our reality the way we want it. And that's encouraging, man. I love this. Penny, we're an hour and a half into this already. I didn't get to talk about the ETs yet, so maybe we'll do that on the other show.
Okay.
Let's talk about gold and silver here. We've talked about crypto, how that ties in maybe here in the time frame from here to December. A lot of analysts are seeing also a huge pullback in December, perhaps people taking big profits, perhaps the pump and dump that you're referring to now, maybe orchestrated by some of the cabal members.
Right.
Maybe let's get into gold and silver here. Again, you and I just agreed that there's a system here for the plebeians, right? This debt-based slavery system. And then there's the asset-based economy for the elites. Well, when you hold gold and silver in your hands, you're no longer plebeians. You're using their money. So let's talk about what's happening to gold and silver here moving forward, not just in the next couple of months, but into next year.
Yeah. I think if you don't have any gold and silver, try to get some. Try to get any. It isn't that expensive. If you're only making $100 a week, it's expensive. But if you're only making $100 a week, you really aren't making enough to live. So the gold and silver both go up. So do a few other metals, the not heavy metals, the rare earth metals, like platinum, rubidium, all the MIUM, minerals, the things that I see with them, I almost don't want to say because it changes based on almost a daily thing. I think it's going up. I see it going up. It's almost like I'm picking up, it's going up, and then boom, down it goes. And I look at it and I think, well, what happened there? So I think there's a massive effort, to control gold and silver in an effort to try to keep buying up as much of it to discourage people, or to get people to turn it in and settle for cash. But
you know that term hodl in crypto? God, I had John Williams on my show too, from Shadow Stats, and he said, if you have silver, hold on to dear life. Don't let it go at any cost, because they're going to try all these schemes to get
that's
it.
right.
High said the same thing, and he said that probably by December here, we would be having these conversations at the Christmas table where people who had silver were now in the thought process of how they were going to distribute it in multi-generational wealth down their family lines. Wow. That's how valuable that stuff really is. So I love that you said that. Wow.
I did see it going up dramatically.
Well, just to be clear, I think you're at 600 or 700 sometime by the end of this year, and perhaps up to 2,000 by February. So yes, $2,000 per ounce. If you're new to the show and you don't know what we're talking about, that is the far cry from the $23 or $24 it's sitting at right now, folks. And again, if you want to put your hands on some physical silver, this is the discount offered to the Beyond Mystic audience here by Miles Franklin. You can have access to that discount at beyondmystic.net/silver. And this week we have the 2022 Silver Britannias at $369 over spot. I just showed this to Jim earlier. Just like, wow, that's a great price. And yes, diversify your portfolio, get into some of these physical assets while you can, because we're seeing here in the physical market also weird things happening. Even in mainstream news now, they're talking about industrial demand overtaking here perhaps some of the mining output. And this was again leading into maybe some of those old WebBot data that show that at some point there was this upheaval in the markets that would force these new prices, regardless of what the COMEX or the LBMA decided the price fix was going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. So crazy times.
Something happens there. One of the things that I saw, I forget which, if it was in the October look-see or the one that kept coming after I published October, was that the U.S. was no longer the world's reserve currency. That was pretty hard to see. It's like,
And really, we've already seen it. They just haven't told us. We've hit the 50-year anniversary of Nixon taking us off the gold standard. And within a week from that, we saw the Saudis make a deal with Russia. And this is supplanting the petrodollar as we see it now as the world reserve currency. Now, we haven't been told this officially, but anybody who's reading the tea leaves understand this. And in my series, The Death of the Petrodollar series, it was Rob Kirby who said this video here. He said, JC, everybody around the world has already de-dollarized. If you're still holding dollars, you're the last guy. You really need to see what's going on here. Even though the mainstream's not telling you, the writing's on the wall, so to speak.
Yeah. Let me just read what this was. This was October. It was the financial system. This is the period from November 15th to December 15th, 2021. The financial system is suffering from deep malaise. Malaise, it means like, just laid out there, no pep, no energy, no, depression, deep depression. I saw a street. There was actually a vision that came with this. I saw a street where some dollars and coins were laying around the street and people were walking right by, completely uninterested in picking up any of those coins or those dollars. And I watched that for a minute and I thought, how come nobody's interested in that money? And then, it was like they're acting as if it's worthless. Like, why would I bother? Mm-hmm. So then this caused me. So then I kind of came out of that vision a little bit and thought, this is not looking good. So then I went to look to see, had we defaulted permanently? Like we had given up on trying to pay? Because the default is supposed to happen, well, it was going to happen tomorrow. And then the cabal managed to get a stay of execution until December. And I don't know how they did that, but I suspect they robbed somebody. So anyway, I went to see whether we had finally defaulted on our U.S. debt without hope of ever paying. And what I saw was that other countries had been dumping dollars at faster and faster rates. And it was kind of like they started kind of sneaky. Like, we'll just dump a few and then a few more and then a few more and then a few more. And it was just becoming a flood. And they were doing business with one another as if the U.S. did not exist. Mm-hmm. The overall impression was everybody understood that the dollar was worthless and was no longer in a position of being the world's reserve currency. And I thought, uh-oh, the financial system that we knew is over. I don't know how to get my mind around that myself. So don't ask me what should we do, because I'm like, oh no. Mm-hmm. That is just something that is mind-boggling. Yeah. It does happen from time to time in any system. A fiat system, I guess, does. I think it was Bix who said, no, the fiat systems only last 50 years, or somebody, maybe it was Cliffy. Yeah. But we're there. We are there.
We're there, and the remote viewers saw this last year when they were tasked to look, blind tasked to look at the death of the petrodollar, and this is what they came up with. All of these congressmen weeping, transfer of power, shock, dismay, all of this stuff. So it lines up with the period of time and the news I just pointed out here a couple of minutes ago. And of course, they were seeing something similar for the end of this month too, in their look-see, or not look-see, but remote viewing. That's on patreon.com/crypto viewing. If you guys want to go check that episode out, absolutely fascinating stuff. Speaking of look-sees and remote viewing, somebody in the chat, and I can't find that, it's scrolling so fast, is JC, why didn't you call out Penny when she says that Trump was working with Bill Gates? I'm like, that was in a look-see, dude. I can't call out a look-see no more than I can call out Dick Algar when he sees something in the future 4 months, or Janine when she picks a card. That's what they're seeing. I mean, what do you want me to call out? We're all pulling these informations from the field. Now, if I knew Penny was lying to me about something personally, then I could call her out on this. But a look-see is very different than that. So I hope you guys see the difference there. Perhaps the person watching this show doesn't understand that was a look-see. Again, we're just trying to piece pieces of the puzzle together. Guys.
Right.
Man, tough crowd sometimes out here. But of course, these conversations. Okay, right on, JC. You're doing great work. God. Okay, I'll focus on that one. Thank you. And thank you, Shauna. All right, I appreciate
Very
that.
Very good.
Again, and even if it was an opinion, why can't I call her out on her opinion? She's allowed to have her opinion. Yeah. She has a reason for. Penny's not stupid. I'm not stupid. And when I say something, I have an opinion, it's because I think it. I say what I mean. I mean what I think. If you've been following my show, you know that.
Yeah.
So, this is
not. Guys, you should know that if I make a mistake or I see something that's not correct, I'm usually the first one to say, "Oh crap! I saw that. That didn't happen."
Yeah, I missed up. Yeah.
And then you learn from that. You learn to look at that and say, "Okay, what really happened, and how did you misinterpret what you saw?" Right. Because you're reading very often. You're reading symbolism. Nobody's putting it out there on a scroll or a movie screen, right. And you're looking to see what is, you're not reading a script here.
Well, here's the thing. We as humans are trying to understand things that by design were made so that we couldn't understand them, so that we couldn't empower ourselves. That's the nature of this thing. So of course, these conversations are hard. Of course, a lot of it is difficult to ascertain and to evaluate. But what you just said there too, it strikes me too. When I make a mistake, I'm like, what led me to the mistake? Am I still holding on to a bias, an old program that maybe gave me, what's that thing? I'm missing my rear side mirror. What's the expression?
Yeah.
How did I not see that one?
Mirror.
Right. How did I not see that one coming? What's in my makeup? Is it in my neuro-linguistic programming that makes me think that only that way is the right way, and I didn't see it coming? It makes me think. And man, I have to tell you, Penny, And these last couple of months, I've been thinking a lot because I
Yeah.
find myself frustrated all the time. You and I had this conversation by the fact that I don't understand a lot of what's going on. I'm usually really good at understanding things in this world, but in this last year, a lot of it doesn't make sense.
Well, I think that the thing that's happening is that the U.S. is breaking up. The financial system is breaking up. All of the systems and institutions are breaking down. And that there's no figuring out to be done. The only figuring out that we should be doing is, okay, where do we go from here? What do we want?
Yeah.
So
I think that's where I get stuck too, because I'm very analytical. I have to understand things. I have to put them in boxes. I have to, I got to fix it and move forward. And here I can't fix it. And I keep catching myself because I say that there's no fixing it. It's gone. We're moving into a new world. So stop putting so much energy there. But my brain still wants to understand it. And so I struggle with myself sometimes to say, okay. Just move on, JC. Let it go. You're not.
Well, you'll see more. You'll see in retrospect. When you look back, hindsight, there's still a lot that can be learned from hindsight. We don't have to get it all right, figure it all out. If we've been fooled, I've been conned in my life more than once, and it was a bitter experience. But I'll just share a little story. Way back when I was asked to design a headset for a accelerated learning course or accelerated learning effort that was going on. And so we designed these circuit boards, and we put these circuit boards in a headset so it would route information, music to one hemisphere of the brain and information to the other, different information. And we got this whole thing all done and all set up. And the guy who had invited us to develop these said, we'll patent these in our name and then we'll sell them all over the world. And he had contacts all over the world. So we get the thing done. We show him what we've got done. He patented it in his name. And we were not paying attention. He sent us the paperwork. And so it was a bitter moment. He took the circuit board. He took the whole all of the headsets. He took the documentation, the logos, the work that I had done to write up what this was about. And my husband at the time, I was grousing about the fact that he cheated us and we wasted more money trying to go to court. But we were too poor to go to New York because he filed in New York. So long story short, my husband said to me, would you stop complaining and worrying about the fact that he took that circuit board and those headsets and your ideas? We have a million other ideas. Let's focus on those. And I was just stunned. I was young at the time. I had never really heard anybody talk like that. And it made a huge impression on me. Don't be crying over spilt milk. Go forward, look forward where your idea, your great idea came from. It isn't your only idea. There's a million of them in there in each one of us. And I think that's where we need to go in terms of building a new human and a new earth that works for us and isn't characterized by corruption.
Yeah. And William Wallace gives you 3 hearts and a couple of thumbs up there. I appreciate that. Hey, guys, there's 3,600 and plus here in the chat. Please give us a like here on our YouTube channel and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This is our third channel, of course, dealing with some of these censorship issues. So please hit that subscribe button. And please also move on over to Penny Kelly's website and subscribe there, too. There's a lot of amazing information, including some of these look-sees, but also snippets of her tea and consciousness. We'll get to that in a second here on our Patreon. But somebody on my show here just said, hey, thank you, JC. I just got the Insider Access Pass. Love what you do. I can't find it, guys. It just scrolled off the screen really fast. So let me bring you the link to that right now. We have a coupon code on. It's called Stay Connected in one word, and that will give you 10% off the yearly membership here. And there's a lot of information there, including that last video you wanted to see with Penny Kelly, all of these financial videos with Jim Willie, the Beyond Crypto Woo reports, and of course a lot of crazy woo stuff. So if you're just swimming in this now and you want to get even deeper, the Insider Access Pass is here for you, of course. So thank you so much, everyone, for your support there. It's what makes it possible for me to be out here doing all of these free shows for you guys on YouTube and having the wonderful people like Penny on the show to have these amazing conversations. Penny, we're an hour 43 in. Let's start rolling this down. Well, what do you have? Is there anything else maybe in either the look-sees or something that you need to share with the audience just to get them to prepare maybe for what's coming, or any words of wisdom just maybe to navigate the next couple of weeks here, because it seemed critical from maybe October 24th to 28th. We're hitting a wall there too, and I'm not sure if that's the white wall you were seeing or some other wall. There seems to be a lot of weird walls we're hitting right now. Mainstream media, but also in our personal lives. A lot of people are getting hit with maybe old karma and trauma coming up right now with this retrograde they have to deal with too. So what can you tell the audience here to help them navigate a little bit better here moving forward?
I think probably the best thing would be just detach a little bit. That's create a little bit of breathing space between you and all the stuff that's happening. I think what's happening is astounding, absolutely astounding. I don't think we're in huge danger at this point. I do see some trouble a couple years down the road, but that's down the road. Let's navigate where we're at and do so with sass. By God. That's it.
Okay, that's great. I love it. That's a good soundbite. It's so direct and to the point. And I was reading comments at the same time to bring the energy to the frequency here in the show. It's a great one here from Eternal Sunshine. So thank you so much for that. And Kennedy also. Aloha, Penny.
Hi, Susanna. Hello.
Thank you so much. I love that. All right, guys. One last thing here too. For these tea and consciousness, and if people are looking into getting maybe some more of the personal interdevelopmental work, intuition work. I know a lot of your classes are already booked on your website up until next year. What can they find here on your Patreon to get them started, Penny?
Oh gosh, we put stuff out almost every day or every couple days, and try to, do something special for the Gamma people. That's my more expensive group. But everything that's on there is it's broad based. I think that's one of the things that somebody just mentioned. Wow, you have some background in 6 different areas. It's not just one thing. And I was trained in a way that is really it's based on integrative thinking and integrative perception. So I have a lot of things that I try to bring forward and give people perspective. We have classes, we have tea, I have books. The tea every Monday night is people get to ask questions. We have a little bit of discussion, a lot of information in those teas. So the classes, I think the classes are full. We have some more opening up in January. I'm going to open a big class in January. Bigger than I usually allow, but I think we have too many people on the waiting list. So
okay. Very good. I saw somebody in the chat saying, "Hey JC, there's 100 thumbs downs on this video. It's probably the people you told them to start their own channel over Setbacks." I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying, hey, if you're so opinionated, do what we do. Try to share with people and wake up more people. And as long as you're earnest and honest about your approach, you're gonna do fine on your channel. And who cares if I have 100 thumbs down on this video? So if you guys like the video, please put a thumbs up, but it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh, there's Melinda. Hi, Melinda. MM. I'm MM.
Exactly. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. And please remember again, one last time here to go subscribe to Penny here. And you can find her also in her newsletter here at consciousnessonfire.com. This was Breaking the Clouds. There's so much more of these conversations. Great job. Okay, thank you. I love that. There's so much more of these conversations that need to be had. Of course, this is the part of us humans growing into adulthood. And sometimes, yeah, we need to have these adult conversations. And so thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and respectfully, of course, sharing your thoughts, even your disagreements with us in the chat. It helps us all understand the bigger picture. And I really appreciate that, guys.
We're just stirring the soup.
Exactly. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, folks. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Bye.